Today on CityCast, Boise. An $11 million levy is on the ballot for Boise voters, aimed at protecting our open spaces. We're breaking down what the money would go toward, why city leaders say it's needed, and how voters are responding. It's Tuesday, October 14th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. To learn more about what this $11 million levy would do, I'm joined by Alexis Pickering. She's with Conservation Voters for Idaho, which has been working to get out the vote for this measure. Welcome back to the podcast, Alexis.
Hi, thanks, Lindsay. Happy to be here.
The last two levies helped buy and preserve some of the most beloved spots around Boise, and the city's calling this levy the Clean Water and Open Space Levy. Feels like kind of a broad title. Can you break down what kind of spaces or improvements people could expect to see this time around?
Basically, it's a little bit more broad than before. The levies that have been passed in the past, in 2001 and 2015 and 17, those were very much geared towards just clean water and open space. But if you look at the actual ballot language and what's going to be before Boise voters on November 4th, it includes, and when we talk about clean water, it specifically means Boise River habitat restoration to help preserve habitat, keep our water clean, those types of things. Continuing to preserve open space, whether that's in the foothills or South Boise or in West Boise. And those open space investments could be parks, they could be trails, right? They could be a lot of different things. And then also pathways. And so that's a new addition compared to what makes this levy different than the past, is because we need more connections to those parks, to the foothills, right? I live in West Boise. We don't have the same type of access that folks that live in the north or northwest part of Boise have when it comes to the trails and the foothills, right? So pathways, whether that's getting kids to school safely, getting to other amenities like our parks or our trails, those are the types of things that would be eligible to be preserved and purchased and improved through this $11 million levy.
And if this levy passes, how much on average would it cost Boise residents?
So that's what's great. It's a 2-year levy, and it would cost property owners about $40 per year. That's with the homeowner's exemption, and that's what the average cost of a house these days.
And a lot's changed in Boise since the last levy passed in 2015. There's more people, more development, and higher costs across the board. How does this new proposal reflect where Boise is today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really exciting, to be honest, because, Boise is still growing, and we're actually growing really rapidly. We're seeing that growth in the southern part of the city. We're seeing infill happen in western Boise. And that's what's great about this levy, is a lot of those investments will naturally go to places where the previous levies haven't been spent. Largely, like the foothills are mostly preserved. There's a couple spots in the eastern part of the foothills that are yet to be protected. That's also going to help with wildfire prevention, by the way, creating some, blocks of space to preserve and prevent it going into houses. But a lot of those investments from this levy are likely going to bolster the livability and safety and access to physical activity, whether that's through parks or whatever, in West Boise and South Boise, because those places are going to be developed, and the city has made a commitment, and council members in particular and the mayor have talked a lot about making sure that every Boisean is a 10-minute walk to a park, all of those things. And a lot of those investments are going to be poised to be invested in West and South Boise. So it's going to be felt if passed, this levy will be felt and will benefit all Boiseans.
So it feels like with this levy, there may be some investments that potentially aren't as overall visible. There's not going to be like this huge chunk of, here's a whole new hiking area. I mean, there might be. It sounds like there's some Boise foothill areas that will be invested in. But it sounds like something where people in Boise will see this maybe more in their subdivision or their neighborhood, where now suddenly there's going to be a path to cut through for school kids, or, a pocket park, or a park much closer to you. Is that kind of the expectation people can have with this levy?
Absolutely. And I want to preface this by saying that the city cannot say these are the projects that would be funded by the levy. That's illegal. So that's why there's not a list of projects. But looking at the Pathways Master Plan, that's largely unfunded. There's key priority projects there like Settlers Canal. There's that 10-minute walk to a park. There was a heat map that showed West Boise and South Boise being the places that need those investments. That would cost $9 million to fully fund that entire effort. And then there's chatter about open space preservation in South Boise as those needs. So to your point, I think a lot of folks in Boise can expect those investments to be felt really close to home and really have a benefit and improvement of quality of life that their kids or themselves will feel really quickly.
And city council members have called these levy dollars a, quote, lever of power, kind of a way to quickly move when land becomes available. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what that means in practice and why timing matters so much when it comes to buying these open spaces or improving these areas of Boise?
Yeah, I think we can look at how the city has done it in the past, and they can oftentimes leverage private matching dollars too. But oftentimes these real estate deals, they just kind of they can fall into the lap of the city. It's really just an opportunity. And if the city isn't prepared or has the means to move on that offer or that opportunity, then it will go to a different private developer likely be developed in some way. And so it's a very important tool in the toolbox for the city to continue on this core value that I believe we all have as Boiseans, to have access to these places that we can move our bodies and be connected to nature and each other.
Hi, I'm Michael Ziviak, Chief Revenue Officer of CityCast. Why do most of us want to learn a new language? It's because we want to speak it out in the real world with real people. Babbel gets you there fast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after she graduates, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. I know, she's spoiled, but that's on me. I'll be honest, my Spanish right now is pretty much tops out at ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? But when we get there, I want to actually talk to people, order food, and really connect with the locals, not just stumble through the basics. That's why I'm starting with Babbel. Learning a language with Babbel is all about small steps, big wins, and progress you can actually track and feel. And with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit perfectly into my day, whether it's between meetings or while I'm having coffee in the morning. I'm really excited to start picking up real-world Spanish before our trip so we can experience Spain in a more meaningful way. Right now, Babbel has a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Now, Alexis, this isn't going to be news to you or anybody listening, but everything feels more expensive now. Housing, utilities, groceries, it's everywhere. You can't escape it. So even if an extra $40 a year doesn't sound like much, some people might say this just isn't the right time. Maybe it's not the right year to ask for more. How do you make the case that it's still worth it?
I think largely folks know that access to our trails and parks, the river, it's one of those places that's still free, right? Going to those places, having a picnic with your family, those are places that buoy us, especially in times like these, right? So it's really important that we can continue to invest in those places so that they're not just accessible to the folks that maybe are able to afford houses in places that are really close to those amenities, right? And it's really important from, an equity standpoint and a fairness standpoint, right, that all Boiseans have the opportunity to enjoy those places too. And I really feel strongly about that. These are things that are free to all of us when we do purchase them. And it sets up the next generation as well. And I think largely, $40, of course, if that's something that's going to make or break someone, my heart goes out to them. But I think we're seeing bigger increases in groceries like month after month, right? That's going way faster. And I think this is a really good move by the city. This is just 11 million. The last levy was 10 million, and things have increased in value and cost by a lot. So this levy isn't going to go as far as the last levy, but I think that that is intentional and a nod to the economic reality that folks are feeling and trying to be mindful of not completely asking for way too much, right? I think this is a measurable and meaningful increase without breaking the bank.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, having access to our free amenities, to the river, I mean, my God, I just went to a fast food restaurant last week, last minute to pick up a couple burgers, and it was like $40. So that didn't feel worth it. That didn't feel worth it at all. I still regret it. I'm still ranting about it. But this is maybe something I'd be definitely more open to spending $40 on.
I'm happy to hear that.
Now, Alexis, your team's been out talking with voters around town about the levy. What are you hearing? I'm really curious. What are people saying about it? Are they generally supportive, or are you picking up some hesitation? It's going to be the third levy in 25 years. Do people have concerns about that? What are you hearing?
It's actually, these are some of the best and funnest conversations I've ever had, to be honest. We've knocked thousands of doors, and I think we've only had about 25 people out of those thousands that have said no.
Oh.
So this is fairly, folks are very, very supportive, or they're just like, hey, I just need to learn more about how, like, where this investment would go and, you know, factor that in. And so we're feeling, I mean, Boiseans love their open spaces. They love the Boise River, and we're seeing that reflected on the doors. And I think most folks too, we're just kind of like, oh yeah, now that we're getting closer to the election, there's been some media coverage. Folks are like, oh yeah, that's on the ballot. And this is the only thing that's on every Boisean's ballot this year. And this is an off-cycle time. So usually folks are a little tuned out. Plus, like, kind of the national craziness, I think that's gotten folks distracted. So our conversations have been overwhelmingly supportive, and folks are very excited to be able to vote for something that gives them a win, that is something that they will feel and enjoy and appreciate in their own lives, and have also just that control of, like, this is something positive that I can actually engage on, rather than just the noise and the heaviness of this time in our country.
Alexis, I'm curious. I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, but with the city, you know, getting a bond in 2001 and then 2015, is there a reason that the city hasn't set up a more permanent funding source for things like this yet? Or do levies just work better?
From my vantage point, you know, what's great about a levy is it's a, 2-year window, we raise it, and then the city and there's an actual advisory committee that approves and, passes along requests to council to approve. So the city council actually doesn't hear these different projects. It has to be vetted through an advisory committee first. There's always a bond would be a tremendous thing, because then that could give the city more revenue up front. So it gives them more flexibility. Because the last levy that passed in 2015 and then had to be recertified in 2017, we've spent down all those funds. So, and that's been, less than 10 years. This next 11 million is going to go by a lot faster than the last levy. So I think depending on what the projects are funded by this next levy, when it passes, I think that's going to give some insight to the city about what they want to do next.
Doug Holloway, Boise's Parks and Rec director, recently said, quote, "Dirt is hard to come by in this community," end quote. Is that maybe the core issue that you're working to convey to voters, that if the city can't act quickly, if we don't have these funds available in a timely way, that some of the best remaining open spaces or some of these opportunities for safety and access could be gone?
So I think that's a no-brainer for folks. We don't even have to lead with that. I think folks really understand, and they see it when they experience those places themselves, how crowded and how worn at times our trails or our river can feel. And so folks are excited to be able to pass and support a levy that's going to expand opportunities so that folks can have other places that they can enjoy, but then also allows the city time and the tools and the resources to actively enhance some of those areas, right? So that's, for instance, the Golden Eagle Audubon Society. They were one of the recipients of the last levy, and they did some really great habitat restoration along the Boise River. I don't think folks know this, but the Boise River is, I think, the largest urban trout fishery in the lower 48. So, I
didn't know that.
I know. And so it's like we've got these resources, and by expanding them, that also helps us take better care of them.
I'm not going to lie. I would definitely watch a show about urban trout fishing. Just since we have that resource.
I did not expect that on my bingo card.
I'm intrigued. Where are these urban trout fishers? I want to talk to you.
Well, that's the thing. There's not very many of them. So.
Oh, okay. We got to preserve them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, Alexis, for someone who maybe loves Boise's trails or parks, but isn't quite sure how they'll vote yet, maybe they're reeling from some sticker shock of buying some $40 fast food hamburgers in the last 7 to 10 days. What do you want them to understand most before they head to the polls?
I would urge them to go to our website. It's called yesforboise.org. It talks more about what the levy can do, what some of those resources could be spent on, and how, we have so much. We have the previous voters of 2001, in 2015 and 17 to thank for preserving these like our foothills, and all of these amazing places that make Boise home and make it what it is. And I think it's our opportunity to carry the baton, to take it over the finish line, so that those investments can continue for the next generation. And so I urge folks to vote yes. It's an easy yes. And, Boise deserves it. We deserve it. Our kids deserve it. I think these are the places that we can't get back once they're sold. And also we didn't have a bad fire season this year, but next year could be bad, right? The foothills have gone up in flames occasionally. And so it also helps the city with their urban wildfire team to be mindful about how can we not just limit development, but also preserve places so that we know if there's high probability of fire, we can put it out quickly, right? So this it's a safety thing, it's a quality of life thing. How could you say no? I just vote yes. Vote yes on November 4th.
Well, Alexis, thank you so much. I know this is a really busy time for you, and so I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and break this down for listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. We'll be back tomorrow morning with spooky stories from the Idaho Penitentiary. You won't want to miss it.